All right, y'all. Welcome to Ladies First, y'all. I am Jawan Williams, affectionately known as the Lady CPA, y'all. Ladies First for me, y'all, is so important because, of course, I'm a lady, right? But I always feel like women have to be first, y'all. As women who have a womb, right? We can create and we have to be able to create the life that we desire. All right. So the whole ladies first movement, right? Is kind of like, look, I'm a movement by myself. Yeah. We are women, y'all, and we are movements all by ourselves. So when we understand that, it's like we really do. We make the world better, right? I love it. We make the world better, but you got to know who you are, right? I love my men, my kings. I should have a few joining, all right? But I love them, but we have to know everyone. We have to know who we are, right? As men, as women, we have to know who we are and where we came from. And that's what this whole fireside chat is about, right? So I am going to stop sharing so we can talk about it, y'all. All right? Welcome, y'all. I am, right? The Lady CPA, y'all. And I want everybody to understand the more you know about yourself, y'all, it's so much easier, right, to understand the plan of your life and what it is that you desire once you know who you are. And a lot of times, y'all, we have been told, right, by people who we are, right, without research, right, without proper documentation, right? Even ancestry, y'all, whether it's just, you saying, I want to know more about me. And that's literally what got me into any type of ancestral work and healing, y'all. It was at the point when I began to look at myself. I'm a CPA, y'all know me, the lady CPA, right? So growing up, y'all, I'm like, I don't know what I wanted to be. I had no idea what I wanted to be, y'all. So I'm going to college, right? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a lawyer. All right, no, I'm gonna be an accountant. And I have had a wonderful career, y'all, but I still didn't know who I was, right? Have you ever felt like, y'all, it's something more, right? And with me, because of empathy, right? A lot of times, some of us are more sensitive to energy than others. So there were certain movies, y'all, that I could not watch. I couldn't watch movies like Rosewood. Y'all, I remember being in college, y'all, and we went to the theater to see Rosewood. I could not. Roots, I could not, y'all. Like there are some movies that just within my soul, it bothered me so much. And that is the reality of many of our people. And that's really what got me into saying, you know what? I want to know more about me, right? Who am I, right? So that I can understand why I'm here and what it is that I should be doing. So then that, guys, made me say, you know what? I'm going to go have my own ancestry, right? So I went to African ancestry. Shout out. Look, I need to plug them, right? I went though, y'all, and I literally said, okay, I want to know who I am. And it's the maternal side, y'all, that you really want to be able to see, okay, who am I, right? On that matriarchal, that maternal side. And I did, y'all. And it's crazy because what I found is now actually trending. Ryan Coogler, y'all, actually has a movie. I hope it's not AI. Y'all know how AI is, right? But I saw that Ryan Coogler has a movie coming out about Mansa Musa, right? And the fall of that empire of Mansa Musa, right? And the Mali people. Well, crazy enough, those are my people, right? So when I did my ancestry, right, swab, and it came up, one thing that I always knew about me, y'all, was that y'all know how we do. We know history. We study slavery, all of that. I was one of those people, y'all. I was like, no way. It is no way I was in slavery. I just wouldn't be here. I would always say that. I'm like, I am so strong. It is just no way. And that's what really wanted me to say every African American person could not have been enslaved, right? There are some of us that never made it here through slavery, right? Some people made it here through military, right? So I actually had my roots traced and it actually came out and it matched y'all the story that my great grandmother told me. So the thing about ancestral lineage is this, y'all, many of us have a long line. I met my great great grandfather. I have a long, my people live a long time. So I grew up with my great great grandfather and my great grandmother all on my grandmother's side, right? So I know all of these people and I know the stories to be true. And the reason I say this, y'all, is because when you have that inclination about who you are, and you're not sure, you have to do the work, y'all. You got to gain the information because a lot of times you will fall victim to what and who people told you you were versus who your DNA tells you who you are, y'all. Addictive patterns of behavior, all of these things take place, and we just don't know who we are, right? You could have had addiction 5 generations back, but yet struggling with it now, and you don't even understand why. This is why I'm hosting this session, y'all. So when I had the ancestry done for myself, it absolutely was verified by my own family. So when that empire split, and many of us, y'all listening to me, you could absolutely be from that same, right, empire, right? You got to know where you're from, and do not let people tell you who you are. Never. You got to find out, y'all. At that split, there was another set of people that did go to Sierra Leone. Many of us have ancestry in Sierra Leone. You have to know that, y'all, because my people went to Sierra Leone. From there, they did. Now they're going to come get us, y'all. They are. They did, right? So, of course, they came, right? But many of the boat that my people were on, actually was overthrown in Cuba. And I know that to be true because my great grandfather that I told y'all about, great great grandfather, is Cuban. His father was Cuban and he married a Haitian woman, right? Which, of course, right, would be, hold on, y'all. I'm admitting people, right? So a lot of times, not knowing who you are, you will fall prey to victimization of not knowing who you are. So after I had my ancestry done and the roots were traced, it made so much sense, y'all, that the people of my mom, I just admitted my mom, I believe she's on, y'all, right? And what I found, because my mom used to say it all the time, right, is that we couldn't been slaves. Like she would always say it. She would be like, no way, right? No way we were enslaved people, right? So when you understand that you need to do the research, it gives you a sense of pride, y'all, to know even if you were enslaved people, it doesn't matter. It's just having the knowledge of the origin of where you came from. So when I had that swab done, and it did come back that, of course, Sierra Leone, right. The boat, of course, from Sierra Leone to the United States, wherever child they was taking us, right, was overthrown in Cuba. And that's how I was able to trace my own roots to Cuba. And that's the desire, y'all, for everyone, right, to understand that. So that is why I put together this, right, of many, right, many, y'all, that we will host here on the Ladies First, y'all, with the Lady CPA. So I am going to welcome y'all, Tiffany. Now, I met Tiffany, y'all, at the Women in Business Symposium this past March, y'all. And when I did the interviews, Tiffany touched me because many people, y'all, they just do not know who they are. And even when the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, it's simply the fact that you don't know who you are. And a lot of times, maybe your grandmother, your mother didn't struggle with certain things, but maybe her mother did, y'all. Ancestral healing goes back. So I want to introduce Tiffany, y'all. She's going to tell you a little about herself, and then we just going to get into the conversation. All right, so welcome y'all to Ladies First, right? Look, first premiere episode of Ladies First with the Lady CPA, y'all. Welcome, Tiffany Grant, y'all, of Life Path Healing Center.
Hey guys, my name is Tiffany Grant. I am a licensed professional counselor and an intuitive and healing integrative professional. So I'm so glad to have this opportunity to even come here with the Lady CPA with you guys to talk about ancestral healing. I mean, that's something that I'm really, really passionate about because the Lady CPA said, hey, in order to learn about yourself, you have to learn more about your family history. And one thing that I have learned is that in therapeutic work, when they ask you questions like, what is your family history and all that, that's very important. And so I know I was intrigued. I'm like, I want to know more. A lot of people come to therapy, they want healing, they want to be able to be the best version of themselves, but they don't know how to. And then also, too, they don't know that what they're going through is also part of what their ancestors have been through. And so by that, I was just very curious to know more, to dig deep and to integrate it in my practice. And also a personal story. I have also learned that my great uncle before he transitioned 2 years ago. He was 85. He told us about our great great grandmother and how beautiful, striking she was, and just all the things that she went through. She was a medicine woman, she escaped slavery, all those things. And also the things that he noticed about her, I realized, like, wait a minute, I'm going through those things too, as far as like her behaviors and how she viewed the world. And so I was very intrigued about that. And also I've learned through my cousins on the same family line of that, we have a history of anxiety, and how when I say it goes so far down when it comes to anxiety and struggling with being able to get out of our comfort zone. I have family members that they're afraid to get out of the house, things of that nature, but it's because of what has happened generations before, and it has trickled down to us. So I was so intrigued. I'm like, you know what, I want to know more, learn more, and break that cycle. So that's more like, when it comes to my work, I love to help people to identify what that looks like for them, how to break it, be that safety net for them while they go through that process, so they can be the best version of themselves and also their children. Because when you break that cycle, your children will see the healthier version of yourself. And then, you teach your kids of the healthier patterns of how to deal with society, how to deal with the world, how to, as far as behaviors. And then, so then they can pass it on to their kids. And then also, too, your family members like, hey, you look, what's, I see this glow. Wait a minute, what's going on? I see that you're walking different, moving different, because I've learned so much about myself, family history, and so I was able to move different. So, that's what my passion. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to do the work and go from there.
I love it. So we're gonna kick off the conversation, y'all, right? So I want to know, and many people, y'all. So everybody that knows me knows that my background, of course, is church. I am a woman of God. I tell people that all the time. But I found that many people in the church fear knowledge of ancestry, right? Because in my opinion, and I'm gonna see how you feel about it, I feel like there is such a stigma on slavery and the bad things that happen in ancestral lineage that most people don't even want to research it or truly find out what it's about because of fear. Have you experienced that whole fear between ancestry and the church in general?
Oh, of course, of course. I have seen where, clients that they want to learn more, but they are afraid to learn more because of what our ancestors have been through. And then also, too, even that fear of knowing exactly what they've been through. So I'm actually unpacking that. And then also too, I have learned, when it comes to the church, it's all about, okay, having faith moving forward, but sometimes we have to look back in order to move forward. And so sometimes we have to tap into that. Now, when it comes to our ancestors, yes, the thing that we have to understand, they did the best they could with what they had. And but we're blessed to have the resources, the connections, the support now to work and to break that. But yeah, I believe that there is a disconnect between that, but being open and not being afraid to tap into that, and being open to wanting to know more. And it's, and yes, you're going to hear the bad, the good, and the indifferent, but it's all part of our makeup. It's all a part of who you are. And one thing about our ancestors, and I always stand on this, yes, there are some good things, some bad things that have happened, but one thing that they did have is resilience and strength. And so, one thing about that is, okay, yes, of all these things that have happened, and I see that now I'm experiencing that in some form, but if they have resilience and strength, I know I am. I have that too. And that means that I'm very powerful in a way that I can change it and break it. But yeah, I do agree.
I love that. And the whole look back, like that's what people have to understand. You have to look back in order to move forward. And it's amazes me how so many people want to forget about the history, but you cannot overcome what you don't have knowledge of. And I tell people all the time, like even my people perish, right? You do perish for lack of knowledge only because you're afraid of what you may uncover. But once you uncover it, then you can heal it. So, have you found, even in your intuitive therapy practice, that it is ancestral or maybe cultural? Is it where many people don't discuss it, right? Because of the past and rather just cover it up and move forward. Have you had that experience?
Oh, of course, of course. You know, it's all about, hey, if you don't say it, then it didn't happen. And but that's not the truth. You know, one thing about it is that when we put things on a rug and we keep putting things on the rug, you have to uncover it because it's going to get to the point where you can't move forward. And so, you know, the thing is that you have to unpack it. You have to move forward. One thing I've also learned too is that even though with that was going on, like our ancestors want us to learn, they want us to heal, they want us to be able to move forward because they did, like I said, what they could do with what they have. And you know, but like I said, you can't just unpack it because all it is that you open it up and then next you have a whole mountain of things that you have to work through, and then that's going to be even a bigger thing that you have to go through. And one thing about trauma and healing work is that you know it can take a while, and so I'd rather for the person to go ahead and work through that with support, instead of just waiting later.
I love that. And even when you say work through, so what I found, especially a lot of people, healing is a process. Like I always tell people, like you're just not healed one day, right? Like every day you wake up, you learn something new about yourself. You learn even new patterns within yourself. And then understanding that pattern, right, will allow you to heal. So even like you were saying, having ancestors, anything is good and bad. Like I tell people, there's light and dark to anything. You're gonna have good and bad
Exactly.
people in this world. You have good and bad, and you there is light and dark to everything in this world. And in order for people to truly understand who they are, you have to be able to unpack some of the darkness. It's crazy because I'm remembering like an episode of a different world, right? Y'all remember Whitley? And Whitley, I think Whitley found out that her like grandparents were like slave masters, like they owned people or something like that. And when you think about it, y'all, it's not that's still not a bad thing. It's just this time it was, right? Even if
Mhm.
you were a wealthy person and as a black person and you own right slaves or anything like that, we still have to remember that it's just the time, like you were saying, it's just the time that we were in. So now, as we are moving forward, what do you feel like would be good for people to maybe even feel more comfortable with embracing and understanding and researching really who they are? Like, how can you be comfortable with saying, you know what, I just want to know more, and what does that look like?
One of the things that I know that you could do is, this is what one of the things that I know that you could do is to feel more comfortable is to be open or also to have that support. A lot of people that want to tap into that, you know, they feel alone. They feel like if they do this, it's going to be a lot of work and, you know, so overwhelming, things of that nature. But you know, having that support, knowing that you have someone that will support you during this transition, during this process, that's a big thing. Also, too, is being aware and giving yourself compassion, giving yourself grace, allowing yourself to say, you know what, at the end of the day, you know, I don't know what's going to happen during this process. I'm so uncomfortable about it. It is going to shake me, but at the same time, I'm doing it to better myself. I How I do it, because I know at first I was very scared. And okay, I don't have any kids, but I have nieces and nephews. And what I did is I looked at their picture. I said, even though it's uncomfortable to me, I want to make it where at the end of the day that my actions, my choices affect them in a positive way because of all the things that, you know, going through in this world, it's a lot, it's just a lot. And so even though that I felt uncomfortable, I had to give myself, you know, give myself a pep talk like, okay, Tiffany, you got this. I had, you know, my sisters and my friends around me. So if I feel overwhelmed, I had, you know, someone I could talk to. I also have a therapist, have a therapist. So, you know, I also process it with my therapist, you know, the things that I found. And we created a safety plan or a plan for safety. So when I do feel overwhelmed, or even like with clients, when they do feel overwhelmed, they know exactly what to do. When they feel uncomfortable, they're able to know what to do and how to process it. So I always tell people, you know, I understand when healing. just healing it, I mean, in general, is going to make you feel uncomfortable. And especially when it comes to being able to ready to unpack all of that, the stuff that your ancestors have left behind. And I know it could be daunting. I know it could be overwhelming. But like I said, just take your time. You don't have to unpack everything. You do what you can, but also create that safety net, or the safety net around you, your family, your friends. Also, if you in therapy, could go to your therapist, process what you found, or we're not, write in a journal, just do those things, because it is going to be uncomfortable, but you are strong and resilient to go through it.
I love the journaling, and I encourage everybody, you have to journal it out, y'all. I journal past, present, and future, right?
Mhm.
Because I tell people, even when you're journaling, even if you're speaking something into existence, then journal it in the present tense, right? I have da 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 da. And I tell people, as you begin to uncover, everything is patterns. Like I tell, it's pattern recognition. At the point you recognize a pattern in your family, then you have to understand that it did not just start with you. And I feel like many people who are dealing with ancestral healing or need to really get into it is you have to start with a pattern in your life. For example, and we're going to get into some of the questions that were submitted, but even when you talk about marriage, right? Many broken homes, it's a pattern, right? It's a pattern
Mhm.
of women not being married, right? It's a pattern of men not being faithful. It's a pattern of, sleeping in separate rooms, right? Like I saw the majority of the women in my family who were women of God, right? We grew up in the church, all of that, right? But no one really had a healthy marriage. People slept in separate rooms. The husband did his thing, the wife did her thing, and you never saw really a coming together. So then all you do is perpetuate those same patterns in your life. So when you look at patterns, what will you tell someone if they said, okay, well, I know that there are some things about me that are negative, right? And I continue to repeat it. What would you say the best way to examine the cause of that or how to stop that pattern? Because it's patterns.
Mhm. So, one of the things that you could do in order to stop that pattern is how you react to a situation. So, for example, self sabotaging. Let's say that you self sabotage, your way out of relationships, new opportunities, or whatnot. And then you find out your mom self sabotaged and your grandmother. You're like, you know what? I want to stop doing this. And so how to do that is, there may be a situation or something that comes up where you find yourself like, getting into that mindset, get into that pattern. And then one thing about it is realize you have to stop yourself and identify that. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm about to self-sabotage, because when you identify a feeling, you're actually giving yourself power and not giving that power. And so when you do that, then you say, okay, I have a choice. Do I self sabotage? Like, do I retreat? Do I back away? Do I not go forward? Or do I go another direction? And then you have to consciously make that other choice. It's going to be hard because it's something that is new. And you know what they say, it takes 28 days or 21 days to create a habit or whatnot. Well, you have to create, be conscious and be consistent. I'm not going to say it's going to take 28 days and then, okay, I got this. No. But what I'm saying is it's going to take time. But once you identify it, allow yourself to feel it, but also choose. You have to make a conscious choice to choose another pattern or choose another way. And then that's how you could do it.
I love that. Now I've had I call it the great debate, right? About
Hmm.
healing is a choice, right? And what we as many people who have been split, right? Because I do feel like ancestral, especially for us, people of color, we were taught, of course, a measure of faith, church, believe in God, salvation, whatever it is, right? But then is still the choice of healing, right? So have you
Hmm.
found now in going through the more intuitive therapy way and even healing in general that people have to be willing to still make that choice to say that while the circumstances, right, of generational curses, whatever it is accurate, these are the circumstances, what and how do I make the choice, right? Many people that they just feel like if they weren't ever equipped, right, how do you make that choice of healing, right? What do you suggest the first step would be for someone that says, well, everybody just can't make that choice, right? What does that look like if you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Well, as far as the choice, and as far as that, I tie that to okay, so when I'm doing a session, and this can not even have to be ancestral healing session, this could be a regular therapy session. And someone come to me and, they're having issues with anxiety or whatnot. But as we dig deeper, I realize it's more ancestral than just certain behaviors. So what I usually do is, I bring that to the forefront. Now, there are some people that when it comes to the church, having a hard time putting those things together. And so I let people understand is like I understand when it comes to the church because like I said, I was raised in the church. All of that, I was very active in the church, very, very active. But at the end of the day, in order to work on, healing, you have to be able to understand everything. Now, as far as the intuitive thing, now, one thing about my spiritual gifts is I'm claircognizant, so I'm clear knowing. And then I'm also a dreamer. So when I have clients, if they ask for a holistic practice, their ancestors actually come to me and then they tell me exactly what they want them to work on or what they see what's going on. And so when it comes to them not knowing, what I usually do is I have to like tie into like just a regular therapeutic traditional practice so they can feel comfortable and then kind of tie into that ancestral thing. But the main thing is too, I always try to make sure and keep them on the forefront like, hey, everything's just step by step. It's all about being comfortable. And I always want to make sure the person that I work with is mainly comfortable. Once they become comfortable as far as comfortable with me and talking, and then I bring all of the things but as like I say, it just takes time. I usually just give nuggets, see how much they're able to take, and then if they could take more, and then I'll go more in deep.
I love that. So one thing I want to touch on is worthiness. So I was reading, this is one thing that I'm not even going to just say women, many people struggle with worthiness wounds and they don't even understand, right? Because that's where that self-sabotage comes in. Like many people just feel like they are undeserving only because they never saw anyone else in it, right? Like I've never seen
Mhm.
anyone else do it. I've never seen anyone else, So now do I deserve it? And I was reading, I think it was Jada Pinkett, and I'm not even a huge Jada. Well, look, I like Jada. I do like Jada, but someone gave me the book. And I just started reading it one weekend. And the thing that Jada uncovered, because you would think someone that, grew up in New York, they're acting, they had all of this stuff, wouldn't struggle with that. But her worthiness wounds actually generational back, right? Her mother was a single mother that raised her. She was a working mother. They was middle class family, but her mother was never there. Well, the same thing with her mother's mother, right? It's like her mother's
Mhm.
mother was that two-parent household, but Jada's mom got pregnant early. So it's like, okay, well now you've had a baby. You have, now, tarnished or stained the family's reputation. And now her mother, who felt unworthy because she had a baby early, even though it's a middle class family, Jada also had those worthiness wounds. So to speak to that, I want to understand, I guess, how people can really unpack maybe some key characteristics of things that will speak to, what maybe this runs a little deeper, right, than just you not feeling worthy. How do I look at your mother and your mother's mother and even your father, right? Fathers that come in and out. I tell women, you establish a pattern, right? When you have a father that's in and out, because then you think it's okay for your husband or your person to be in and out, right? Because that's the pattern that you've seen. So when you looking at these patterns and we look at worthiness, right? What are some of the key components that you would speak to when it comes to like those worthiness wounds and really uncovering why people don't feel worthy?
One of the things is like I said, I love journaling. I just love journaling. But the first thing is to help them unpack that is to write something that says, what do I love about myself? And they sometimes people will put one thing, five things or whatnot. But one thing I've learned, especially when it comes to worthiness or self-sabotaging, a lot of people are unable to even put down two things. And so when that happens, then I start unpacking that, like, okay, you only see one thing about yourself, two things, does and I asked about their childhood too. So does your parents gave you that, love, or gave you that way that you feel worthy? And like, well, no, because my mom did this. Okay, well, let's talk about that, and then we find out because their mother, and not even just the mothers, but also the fathers, they may see that in their fathers, but the main thing is, I want them to see how they see themselves, how they see themselves in the world. And that really is a really good, effective tool that I use to kind of help dive into that conversation. So yeah.
I love that. Okay, and then the final question before we go to the Q&A, right?
Okay.
Is forgiveness, right? So
Mm.
once the person gets into the session, right, and you're, kind of working through it, many people have a hard time, I found, even in my own coaching, forgiving not only themselves, but their parents or whoever, the ancestor, and ancestors are anyone that's passed away for the collective, just in general, so y'all will know when
Right.
we say the term ancestor, your grandmother, when she passes away, is an ancestor. If your mother passes away, she's an ancestor, right? So you got to understand that there are people who will pass away and you have not forgiven, right? For whatever reason, you didn't work it out when they were here. What does that look like? And how do you see people hold on to unforgiveness of people who have passed away simply because they were not able to maybe come to terms with the relationship or whatever it was before that person left this earth?
Well, I see a lot of like anger, resentment. I see a lot of guilt, and loneliness. Now, one thing about that, yes, they have transitioned, but there are plenty of ways to connect and also work through that. And I'm going to talk about in the therapeutic and in the spiritual context. So, in the therapeutic way, with that, you can write a letter to them. You know, hey, tell me exactly how you feel. What went down, and how that made you react in your behaviors in this way. So, that's one thing. Another thing is, like I said, when it comes to compassion, because there's things, sometimes when the person is living, we don't know how to talk to them. We don't know how to bring what we want to bring up. And so we always think, oh, we got time. Oh, time is on our side. No, it's not. It's not on our side, but, and then when that person transition, we feel guilty and things of that nature. It's a normal reaction, but you have to forgive yourself. And one thing I have learned is, a lot of people don't know what that looks like. A lot of people don't know what giving yourself grace, giving yourself compassion, allowing yourself to forgive and forgive others. They don't know, like, okay, I forgive you, but it takes more than that. It takes being aware that, okay, what they've been through, they may not know what happened. They may not know what they did. I'm not going to say they did that, but you just have to be able to like allow those feelings to come out, like I said, write in a journal, like, okay, I didn't like you for doing this and you made me feel this type of way. But once those feelings come out, like, you know what, understand that at the end of the day, sometimes some of their actions are, what they knew at the time, and you also too, you never know that sometimes that person may felt the same way, as far as like, I really want to reestablish that relationship. So, but I don't know how to do it, so we don't know what the other person may have felt at that moment. But just forgiving yourself from not, talking to them before they transition. And also just allow, like, what, at the end of the day, I forgive you for whatever it may be. And, I forgive myself because I know it's hard, and allow those emotions to come up. That's one of the things that we always say, well, I forgive you, but we don't allow those emotions to come up. We always want to keep those buried. We have to allow ourselves to feel that. We have to allow ourselves so we can feel sincere about it. And then sometimes also in a spiritual context, and I've had this experience. I give you a personal one. So my grandfather um, transitioned 2 years before I was born, and I am a triplet, so it's three girls,
I
and
love
so
it.
and my sister is on it too. But My grandfather transitioned 2 years before we were born. And we have heard stories about how he, was a great grandfather, all the things that he did for not just his wife and his children, his son and grandkids, but also what he did as far as in the community, because he was well known in the community in Atlanta. And I kind of felt envious about that. I was like, wait a minute. Everybody's talking all these good things about my grandfather, but I didn't get a chance to experience that. So for years, I harbored jealousy and envy because I wanted that grandfather experience. I never had a grandfather. And so I remember this. It was 4 years ago. Like I said, I'm a dreamer. And that's one of my spiritual gifts. And my grandfather came to me in my dream. It was actually a house, it was my grandparents' house. And I was my younger self. So that tells me it was my inner child that it was harboring that for a long time. And it was me, my sisters, my brother, and my grandmother. My grandmother transitioned over a decade ago. And my grandfather was standing there, just standing like in the middle of the living room space. And then I looked at him and I just went at him. I'm like, you never, why did you have to die before we were born? And because some of the things that I was heard from my father was that he never told anyone that he was sick. And so I was very upset about that. So in my dream, I just gave it I didn't curse him out, but I just told him how I feel. And my grandmother was like, baby, it's okay. It's okay. I love you and all that stuff. And so when I woke up, I had tears in my eyes. And, I remember my grandfather's mannerism and things of that nature. So I want to make sure, like, okay, I want to make sure it's my grandfather because, so I called my father and I asked my dad before I even told him about the dream. I asked my dad about my grandfather's his mannerism. And I said, is he this type of person when you tell him about certain things? Does he react? He was like, oh, yeah, he's this and this and that. So, how my grandfather was in my dream, that's how he was in the physical realm. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And I told my dad that he came to me in a dream. And when I told him exactly how I felt. And after that, I felt this sense of release. I actually, even though I told him how I felt, I said, but granddad, I forgive you. I forgive you because I know that you're here. I know that you'll always be there and things of that nature. And I felt a sense of release, So when I woke up after I had my crying session, I woke up and I was like, you know what? I feel better. I feel better that I was able to talk to my grandfather. I feel better that, I told my grandfather how I felt, but also I told him that I forgave him. And then I forgave myself for harboring those feelings and living my life, through those feelings. So, and then also giving myself some compassion and giving myself grace to allow myself to go through that.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's actually going to lead to one of the first questions. So I did have some of my members. So everyone that is joining, make sure you guys are in the comments. I do have a lot of my moderators in the comments. If you guys want to follow us, they are dropping the links to the Discord, websites, and all of that as well. And then Tiffany will, of course, give you all of her contact information as well. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, y'all. We're going to get into the questions. So the members of my Discord, I did allow them to submit questions and, I kind of reviewed them. So we're going to go over a few of their questions. All right. Shout out to the Discord, y'all. All right. Make sure y'all join Discord. So the first one, I love this question. It is about sons. All right. So it says, how do you help a firstborn son who feels responsible for carrying the emotional, financial, and spiritual burdens of his family? What guidance would you give someone who constantly feels the weight of being the protector, provider, and problem solver? And how can he learn to support his family without losing himself in the process?
So one thing that I can say in regarding that, because I know about, men and protectors and wanting to the whole weight. One thing is, and I've learned that when you when you talk to your son or what, because it's all about allowing your son to know, like, you know what, I'm just want to let you know you're not by yourself in this. You're, I got you. Because sometimes when you're a protector, you provide, you feel alone. You feel like you have nobody. And so being able to allow that person to vent and be able to talk to you and be able to, just let all of those things out, sometimes that can be a release because they can also hold in and harbor those feelings. And knowing that. So that is what I would usually would say. I don't know the full context of it, but that's one of the things that came to my head. It sounds like the son, he's harboring also a lot of feelings, feel like he's by himself, feel like he's alone, not able to talk to anyone. And so I would say, when that person has someone that they can actually get all of that out and all of that burden, and then also let them know, like, hey, if there's any, knowing that that person is supported, hey, how can I support you in this moment to help you in that journey, because that's a lot to carry. So if giving that person the opportunity to even share what they need, when that person is allowed to share what's going on, because like I said, sometimes, especially with our men, they do a lot. They carry on as far as the firstborn, or just carry on as far as their family and being a protector and making sure all the finances. But sometimes, they just need that emotional support, or just need to know that they're not by themselves and they have a safe place that they can talk.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't know the context either, but I will say too, for whoever in the collective asks this question, I also feel like it's depending on if this is a son who is married and we're talking about
Hmm.
his family that he's supporting, then
Yep.
yeah, he needs that additional support to make sure that he is advocating for and that he has it. Now, if this is a son who is worrying about taking care of his mother and that family, then I would say that's different because there are like I have a son that just graduated high school. He's 19, right? But he has no responsibility to take care. He is the oldest son, but that's he has no responsibility. So I feel like a lot of when we talk about ancestral, right, there will be many men, especially boys, who have been raised with single mothers who all of a
Hmm.
sudden feel responsible for that mother. I do feel like that's ancestral healing issues because a son should not be responsible for taking care of his mother. It's just not supposed to be that way. Even if you look at royalty, bloodline, DNA, it's just not supposed to be that way. So I will say for whoever asks this question, if you are talking about a young man and this is a single parent situation and he's feeling responsible for the family, then for that one, I would say that the mother has to instill in that son that it's not his responsibility. Like I tell my
Hmm.
son all the time, like my son just graduated high school and he's like, okay, mom, I let him quit his little job right before graduation because he wanted to hang out. But now graduation is over. He's like, mom, I got to get a job. I said, no, you don't. It's the summer.
Exactly.
You don't have to get a
Exactly.
job. You don't need to work. We're fine. I take care of everyone. You're good, right? So I will say for whoever that question is, if it is a child, a young man, he's not responsible, and you have to make sure that he's not. And I instill that in my son. You are not responsible for taking care of me. I take care of me. You're responsible for taking care of you. Now, if you get a job, that's your money, right? But you're not. And I implore many single mothers. Do not make your sons or your daughters, right, responsible for taking care of your needs. Everybody falls on hard times, but a child is not responsible for the parent. The parent got to figure it out because all you do is create additional anxiety. Like
Hmm.
what Tiffany said, anxiety, all of this stuff built up in children who do not need that because it is not their responsibility to be here, right? Parents have
Exactly.
children, right? Children don't have parents. So at that point, I would say to whoever asked that question, if it is that type of dynamic, then you need to make sure that your son does not feel responsible. The second question I love, the second question is about gifts. So this is going to get into your intuitive side. So this one says, I have many friends who are gifted in seeing and speaking to ancestors. My ancestors contact them to give me a message. How do I start hearing them for myself? How do I know that I am connected? And then I feel like I am gaining momentum in communicating, but I want to know the signs that I am connected.
Okay. The first thing is that you have to be open. That's the first thing. One thing I've learned about is that when it comes to ancestry, spiritual gifts, they're not going to come to you until you are open to for them to come. Because sometimes, like, okay, I'm ready to connect with them, but then internally, you're like, I don't know, I don't know what, so, I don't know who's gonna come through, so it's just like you being open and being receptive, but also too is that your ancestors are already speaking to you in their different ways. So it doesn't always have to be like your dreams or things like that. For example, I have one of my sisters, like I said, the ancestors come to me in dreams, but they come to her through cardinals.
That's it.
So, yep.
Every day,
So
all day.
Yep. So the thing is, like, whenever she feel overwhelmed, she's like, "Yeah, I just had a really rough day." And or she's like, "Yeah, I was thinking about something," and then as soon as she stepped outside, she saw a cardinal just looking at her.
Gorgeous.
And then
My
next,
godmother used to take me.
I'm sorry,
over,
someone came off unmute. I muted him. You're good.
oh, but yeah, so the cardinals, they're when I say they're there. But then also too, the other thing is that connecting is when I say honoring, you can like for example. So, like your grandmother's birthday is coming up. All right. Well, I know what I do is, I don't have to have like nothing big extravagant, but just like honoring my grandmother, her birthday. I said, Grandmother, wherever you are, I just want to say happy birthday and that I love you. And then, of course, the cardinals come. The other thing is, just being open to the mess because everyone's spiritual gifts are different. They communicate with you different ways. So, like I said, mine is dreams. My sister, they come to her. Sometimes it could just be knowing things. Like why I feel like. I can give you a great example. I hope my sister don't get mad at this, but my. So my sister, we were just talking. This is actually this week, and we were just talking and whatnot. And she was like, she was moved to a new space and whatnot in a new area. She was like, I don't know about this area, just that fear of the unknown. And then she just had a sense of peace. And the piece was, she was like, I think our grandmother just told me that I just had the feeling that she's around and she just said everything is okay. So they come and they present in different ways. So as far as connecting, just acknowledging, they do speak, they're always trying to talk to you. So they talk to you in different ways. It's just you being open and being aware of how they're communicating with you.
I love that. And I tell the ladies the same thing. Cardinals, it's birds for me. Every bird,
Mhm.
it can be a woodpecker, a cardinal, a hawk done flew over here, a
Exactly.
seagull come out of nowhere. I'm like, where is the ocean? Why am I seeing a seagull? Right? So
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
I tell you, just gotta pay attention. I love that, y'all. And you do, y'all. You just have to pay attention. Even little things as far as like I remember I was sitting on the bed and I could have sworn somebody sat on my bed. Like I just felt somebody sat on
Hmm.
the bed and looked and nobody's there. Well, you know somebody's there because you feel the energy, right? So I love
Exactly.
that. I love that.
Exactly. And I know one thing about my sister before she had that experience, she heard owls. And so owls represent protective spirits, things like that. And so I knew exactly when she said, I said, yeah, right before she went to sleep, after we had a conversation, she's like, I just heard owls. I don't know, I was like, well, Tanya, that's basically they saying that you're safe, you're protected, they got you, and then she had that sense of peace, So like I said, they communicate with you in all sorts of ways. It's just you have to be open to it and be receptive of how they're responding or how they're communicating with you.
Yep, I love that. The next question is another one, which I love this one too. So this one says, why are there few men, fathers, and union? Oh, hold on, let me read this. Why are there few men, fathers, and union marriage? Okay, so this is someone who, in their, I guess, in her particular family, they struggle with men, right, who are either not fathers or not being in union and marriage.
Mhm.
How is that? What would you say to that? Because I have my own things. I'm just gonna ask you because that's all she really put is why are there few men or fathers in union or marriage in her particular family? And is there anything that she could do? Because she craves that union, that like a partner, like she craves that. So how can you break that, I guess?
Um, well, one of the things you could do is learning more about that because it sounds to me that, of course, this generation is more, you know, way back down the lineage. As far as breaking it is, I mean, I don't know much of the context, but talking to your sons or talking to whoever you're, the person that you're referencing, and just I don't want to say just educating, but it's just more of I got it. So more of learning and teaching them as far as like ancestry. So what I mean by that is, like, hey, we just start a conversation to have that bring that nugget and allow that person to start to think. But like I said, I think it's more like has something way, way behind, back there. But like if the person has kids and, nieces and nephews that they want them to break that, all I can say is just, teaching them different ways or just having, I can say, well, a male role model or whatnot, just to kind of see what that looks like, what it looks different. So that's all I can think of at this moment.
Yeah, and then I would say too, for because you have to just stop the pattern. So I tell people,
Yeah,
I talk to women all the time, and it's like I want a husband, I want this, I want that, but then I don't trust. It's not gonna happen then, right? So I think that just goes back to the whole healing thing too, where if you know that you have a family, broken family, right, and husband's not there, children, people not want to be married, all of that is really too. I feel like showing your children the benefits of you,
exactly.
right? The benefits of coming together.
Right. And one thing that let's say if they're in a marriage and even the marriage not healthy, or if they're not even in a marriage and they want to change that, sometimes when you go do your own healing work and you walk a certain walk, then they're going to become curious. That partner is going to become curious and like, okay, I want to learn more. Then they will start to, be want to learn, want to do their own because you're done your own healing.
Yeah.
You're showing the healed version of yourself. And then that's how you can start breaking those patterns because by you healing yourself, by you healing one yourself, then they will see like, okay, I like this. I like this girl. I like how you respond to different things. I want to learn. I want to know more. I want to go to therapy. I want to start doing healing work. And that's to me, that's how you break it. Sometimes just walking your walk, that can show a lot.
I love that. Walking your walk, y'all. And y'all know my collective. That's what I always say. You got to walk it out. Like nobody can walk out your healing journey. No one can tell you what your healing journey looks like. And you just got to walk it out. So I feel like, look, that's the best advice of all for
Exactly.
everybody, y'all, is just walk it out, right? Like, at the point you are and you want different, then you have to become what it is that you want. Anything that's dealing with ancestral is learn what it is that you need to know about the past so that you can fix it in the present moment because in the present moment is how you impact your future. I tell people the past is depression, but sometimes you got to go back there to unravel it, heal it, right?
Exactly.
And live here in the present moment. Many people suffer with anxiety only because you want to know what's coming next, right? What's next? What's
Exactly.
next? It doesn't matter what's next. Live in the present moment. So we're gonna get ready to end, y'all, but I am going to make sure that you have Tiffany's information. So before I bring her back, I want to remind everyone, of course, y'all that follow me, y'all know our schedule. Make sure y'all are in the chat. All right. How you catch up with me, of course, is theladycollective.org. Everyone knows me. I am the Lady CPA, y'all, and I am starting these series of webinars called Ladies First, y'all, for us and of course our kings to get the information first. We're going to have stock investment, women who in the stocks. We're going to have what I call the divine masculine, my man of God Q&A question for the women that be like, I want to ask him this, I want to ask him that. So we're doing these web series, y'all, for everyone as a collective support. Like Tiffany said, a therapist need a therapist, right? A life coach need a coach.
Exactly.
So that's what the Discord is, y'all. So join us on Discord. The ladies are dropping it on our Discord, y'all. We have a prayer closet. All right. We post prayers every morning to the prayer closet. We have the book nook, the book club, the cook's kitchen. I'm into astrology because God created the heaven and the earth, y'all. If you do
Exactly.
not know astrology, you don't even understand what's going on in the world. God created the heaven and the earth. You better know astrology. All right. So I post astrology on there, and really it's just a support system for all of us to say, hey, I'm having a bad day. I need somebody to help me. So If you are a part of the Discord, if you are not, make sure you check the chat out, y'all. Join us on Discord. This will absolutely be on my YouTube channel as well, and you'll get a copy, Tiffany, as well. If you want to post out to your people or the link, you can always go back, y'all, because I know I had a few people join late. If you join late, it's okay. By tomorrow, this should be on the YouTube channel. The moderators have been dropping the YouTube link in the chat as well, so make sure you guys follow on YouTube so that you can catch the recap. All right, now Tiffany, let them know how they can find you, how they can reach you. We got to get you
Yes.
booked and busy, girl.
Yes, you can reach me on my social platform for Instagram. It's LifePath, LifePathac. That's at LifePathHC. For my other parts, it's Facebook, Instagram, not Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok is Life Path Healing Center. And then also my website is www.lifepathhc.com.
Awesome. Moderators, if y'all got any of that, drop it in the comments for me too, so that everyone can have Tiffany's information. Y'all, this has been amazing. Thank you guys so much
Yes.
for joining us on our first Ladies First, y'all. So this is the first of many. I will have these coming out every 2 to 3 weeks. And we're working on some great things in the background, y'all. So this is a first of many. So thank you everybody who took time this evening to be with me. I am, of course, the Lady CPA, y'all. And we are wrap, y'all. It's all y'all. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you.